Hi, my name is Blythe, and as you can tell from the title of this page, it is Blythe Inspired. I wanted to introduce myself briefly before this first video and say Blythe Inspired is a name that I've had in my mind as far as the desire to use for years. I started gardening only about 8 years ago. I did not garden at all in my younger years. I actually began gardening when I was very pregnant with my first child and was given some hostas and daylilies to plant in, I was 8 months pregnant in the middle of summer, but I immediately loved it so much. I knew that that was something that I wanted to continue to do, and that extended into houseplants, which I now also really enjoy taking care of. In our zone 4, there are a few months of nice weather, and then there are a lot of months of being inside. So my intent with this vlog is to share what is a passion for me for growing things outdoors and growing things indoors. I would title it in its category more of a personal vlog. I wouldn't say that all things are going to be educational. As I learn, I want to share tips that I have, but the whole point for me is to share what is more of a therapeutic and healing journey, utilizing growing and nature and plants, and really have that be something that's available for anybody else who would similarly find that type of gardening therapy. So I will have things that I've learned, and I will have things that I fail at, and I want to share and document all of those things. I will preface this first video by saying that I am learning the equipment that I have, and I'm learning what is a good and poor time to film. And this video on tomatoes and perfectionism, which details the thoughts that I'm having specifically as I was out pruning my tomatoes, is imperfect, very imperfect. It is windy, it is choppy, the sound is not the greatest. So for anyone who listens to it, I thank you for enduring that. But I didn't want to erase it and keep filming over and over and over again, trying to make things perfect, because that is the whole point of this journey, is that a lot of what nature and gardening are teaching me is about what can't be controlled and what is imperfect and will always be imperfect, and embracing imperfect with joy and satisfaction and contentment. So I left it as is. I tried to adjust the volume as best I could, but the first few videos on this vlog will likely be rough as I learn how to better edit and position the camera. So I thank anybody who watches it for being patient with me. I just wanted to share for a minute while I was out here, because I was thinking part of what I was really wanting, or am really wanting, in starting this channel, Wild, is discussion while I'm out gardening. A lot of my internal thoughts while I'm doing this are about things that I would want to have a discussion about, or things that I would want to have a conversation about. And so in that, I was thinking about perfectionism a lot as I am out weeding today. So I'll kind of scroll out here. We'll see the tomatoes. I had a big problem with my tomatoes this year, and that is that I thought I want to grow tomatoes in the best way possible. And in looking that up, it was about pruning and staking and getting them ready on a single stem as opposed to a tomato cage. And so I, because of my own issues with perfectionism, got rid of all my tomato cages, bought some stakes, bought some string that was needed to stake them up, bought a pruners, and said, well, that's how I'm going to do it, and I'm going to have the best tomatoes ever, because it's all going to be the best. It's not. I'm having a lot of trouble with that. They are not perfect. They're not turning out how I want. I think I pruned them incorrectly, and because of the storms that we have had, and because of the inclement weather that we have had, I have actually had my tomatoes start to kind of flip on me and turn. They're all leaning. In my pruning them, I believe, incorrectly, I don't think I'm getting the yield that I would have gotten. But as I'm working with them today, I am working on that lesson that gardening is teaching me about perfectionism. It doesn't have to be perfect. I don't have to be perfect. That is very, very, very much a pervasive struggle for a myriad of reasons. That feeling that I have to do this correctly the first time, and I have to present myself in a fashion, and I have to look a certain way and be a certain way and act a certain way. And I figured I would create this video, which was part of my intent in all of this gardening video creation in the first place, to process that and have a place to process that, because there are so many personal issues that I have found a great depth of healing in the application of gardening and what that means, in that application of my faith to now something in the natural that refuses to be perfect, because we live in a fallen world. So nothing that I do is going to be perfect. But again, the learning process is that I'm going to learn, whether I have 1 or 4 tomato plants, what works and what doesn't work, so that the more that I have in the future, the better I'm able to manage them. I brought them all down to 1 central stake, and I've been pruning. I still have a yield on them, but it's not what I wanted. They've been tipping in the storms we've been having, so my husband actually was the one that suggested that I use these ties to tie the top of the stakes together, which I did today, and I'm really excited about, because that seems to be straightening some of them out. And now learning how to prune them. I think I did it wrong, which I think decreased the yield. So I have some yield coming in on every plant, and it's actually a fairly decent yield for the plants. I see some splitting there, but we've had a bunch of water recently. Depending on what type of plant, I have a bunch of different kinds here. It's not even that the yield is that bad. It just is that it's not what I expected. Because of course my expectations were that I'm going to learn how to prune, I'm going to watch a few YouTube videos, and everything is going to be so beautiful and perfect that I will have succeeded automatically, and it's not the case. But that's where look at this guy. He doesn't even care that he's here. That's where the spiritual application comes in. Am I going to quit? Or am I going to decide that life isn't perfect, nothing is perfect, what yield will I get, what can I learn from this? I definitely am learning that I need to know more about pruning. I'm learning that I may need to actually get tomato cages. I'm learning that I need to figure out what that is. I think that's blossom end rot, so what causes that? How can I prevent that? I'm learning that I'll need to get taller stakes, and 1 probably won't cut it. Different kinds of tape. I used this tie here for my first round. The store didn't have it, so the next time I bought Velcro. Now the store is out of both, so I'm using twine. It's not at all what I want, because I also want order, symmetry. I like it all symmetrical. I like it all to be together. And that's not going to happen either. But so far, look at this thing. It's leaning out. It's perpendicular, leaning out of the bed. I don't know. No point in ripping it out of the ground, but it's not going to be what I want. It doesn't look how I want. And that is what it is. I'm going to enjoy them, and I'm going to learn from my mishmash mess of different tapes and holds and stakes and twine. I'm going to learn how to do it better next year. I'm going to learn how to take care of them better. And I'm going to apply that to life. Gardening requires patience and fortitude and learning to love yourself as you make mistakes, and just are thankful that you didn't kill your plant in the process. This thing is so leaning. I need to go actually tie this up right now. before it tips over completely out of the ground. So I think I'm going to tie this one to my cattle panel over there, because that's not going to move if people hang on it. And so that's going to look ugly to have a big twine holding it up, but that means it's not going to rip out of the ground. And I'm learning that I shouldn't buy dollar store stakes to try and hold my giant tomatoes up. Another part of my sadness with imperfection this year were these cattle panels that we bought, where you can see it has loofah gourd growing up one side and watermelon gourd growing up the other. Watermelon, excuse me, not gourd. Neither of which are doing much of anything, and then I felt like that was a failure, and that made me really sad, and we spent money on these, and now they're just going to sit there like a wire structure doing nothing. But that isn't the end of the world, because there's always next year. And I came out looking today, and look what I found. Look at this guy. That's my first watermelon. So even though this vine is pathetic looking, and I don't know what got on the bottom of them, but some kind of bug. I sprayed them with bug spray today. It's not a borer because there's no frass, but it's something. That's the loofah. This side's actually recovering pretty well, the watermelon. Even though it doesn't look as lush, it's not filling up my entire trellis like this one is. It still is going to give me at least one really fun, beautiful watermelon, and then that will have made the whole thing worthwhile.